Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I am Bryson Carver. We have got an absolutely packed show for you guys tonight. It's funny. I was looking at my topics for today a few hours ago. I was thinking, okay, and I'm not kidding when I say this. I usually do 5 topics a day. The first 4, I could probably lead the show with. But any of the 4, whether you're talking about the Dolphins tampering scandal that just cost them a first-round pick next year and a third-rounder the following year in 2024, or Aaron Rodgers taking psychedelic drugs to help him on and off the football field, and all kinds of stuff. Deshaun Watson, his suspension being appealed by the National Football League. The only one on the show that probably wouldn't lead the show off is the fact that after, how long has it been? 6 months? 6 months and, well, a little short of 6 months, almost half a year. Ladies and gentlemen, football is back. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's just the Hall of Fame game. Jacksonville Jaguars, Las Vegas Raiders, but I don't frickin' care. It's football, ladies and gentlemen. We got it back tonight, the Hall of Fame game. I'll discuss, not really the game, because it's going to be a bunch of third and fourth stringers playing and getting their opportunity to get out in the field and show what they've got. But more than anything else, wanting to see, what are the expectations this year and even moving forward beyond this year for both Jacksonville and for Las Vegas, because I think these are 2 franchises that are in very, very fascinating spots. But first, I did want to talk about another legend that we lost this week. We lost Bill Russell, of course, on Sunday, as well as many other, superstars in the entertainment industry. But on Tuesday, we lost in a city full of stars, full of them, Los Angeles, California. We lost one of the biggest. Vin Scully passed away on Tuesday night at the age of 94. Now, Vin was, I've always believed, the job of a broadcaster, because we know about when you're watching a game, when you're not listening to a game, because we know a radio broadcaster has to do a lot more explaining, right? Because you can't see what's going on. He or she has to tell you exactly what's going on, where somebody's lined up. If you're talking about football, a certain formation, or a fast break in basketball, who's on the fast break, little things like that. But if you're watching the game in person, or if you're watching the game at home and you just so happen to have the TV muted, or you're at a party and you can't really hear what the announcers are saying, it doesn't take away from what you are seeing. But what a great announcer does is they elevate the moment. They make the moment feel even bigger than it already is. Few, if any, did that better than Vin Scully. Talk about Koufax's perfect game in 1965. Talking about, don't remind me as a Red Sox fan, God rest his soul, Bill Buckner, his error at the end of Game 6 of the 86 World Series that cost Boston the title against the New York Mets, and they went on to lose Game 7. Vin Scully behind the bag. Remember that? Of course, the iconic home run in 1993 by Joe Carter to win the World Series for the Toronto Blue Jays. Dwight Clark's The Catch in the 1982 NFC Championship game against the Dallas Cowboys. Probably the most iconic, the 2 most iconic in my view, is Kirk Gibson's homer in Game 1 of the 1988 World Series, in which Kirk was beat up but hit the walk-off homer. And of course, it's an iconic call. You got to check it out on YouTube by Vin Scully. But I think probably the most iconic is Hank Aaron. Right? It was in 1974. Yes, 1974, the hallowed home run record held by Babe Ruth. 714 homers had stood for decades. And in a sport that had, let's just say, not the greatest history in regards to racism, it was a meek man by the name of Hank Aaron, a black man, who broke the record held by the great Babe Ruth. And Vin Scully was on the call, and Vin Scully elevated the moment. That's what he did. And as Hank Aaron is either rounding second or rounding third, Vin Scully is talking about the significance, the historical significance of this moment. Not just that Babe Ruth's record fell, but that a black man broke it. And how massive this is for Major League Baseball, how huge this is for the all-time, for how we look at that record all time. Vin Scully understood the moment. And not only did he, because some announcers maybe could get caught up in what's going on the field or whatever sport they're calling. But Vin Scully made it feel like it was a scene in a movie. And it's fitting that the vast majority of his 67-year career as the lead announcer for the Dodgers, that the vast majority of that was in Los Angeles. Of course, they were the Brooklyn Dodgers. They moved to Los Angeles. It's fitting that in a town that is all about story making, Hollywood, it was Vin Scully who time and time again told the story of the greatest moments in the history of baseball. He's certainly, without a question, I don't think any of us would disagree, the greatest baseball announcer of all time. But is he in the conversation to be one of the greatest sports broadcasters of all time? Without a question. Without a question. Vin Scully, what made him great is that he could take even, forget about the big moments, forget what I just mentioned about the catch or Buckner's error, Gibson's home run, Hank Aaron's record-breaking home run. Vin Scully could take the smallest of moments, the most insignificant at-bat, you won't remember it a minute and a half after it happened, and he could turn it into something great. There was an at-bat, I saw this a day after Vin Scully passed. I think it was a game from 2014, 2015. I think it was 2015. And Johnny Gomes, shout out to Johnny Gomes. He was playing at the time for the Atlanta Braves, and he was at the plate. It was probably the third or fourth inning, right? The score was like 1-0 Dodgers or something. You can go look it up. But Vin Scully described a moment in Gomes' childhood when he was attacked by a wolf. And he told the story of the guy at the plate, at bat, being attacked as a wolf, being attacked by a wolf as a kid, all without missing a pitch. Because we know if an announcer, say gets to telling a story, we don't have a problem with that. Certainly in a sport like baseball where, sometimes maybe the pacing is a little slow, occasional story is not going to hurt anybody. But Vin Scully told the story all without missing a pitch. He was telling it and so the wolf jumped on Johnny Gomes. The 2-1 pitch is in there for a strike. That's who he was. He was a baseball fan till his dying breath. Of course, the most iconic catchphrase. Every great announcer has one, but Vin Scully's was, "It's time for Dodger baseball." That was his call. And even when he retired from broadcasting after the 2016 season, he would occasionally, show up pregame if it was like a big Dodgers postseason game, like a World Series game, or say like a National League Championship Series game at home at Dodger Stadium, and he would always, take the mic, near the mound, and of course, say that iconic phrase that he said for over 60 years, almost 70 years. Think about all the things that this man saw in his lifetime, just as the Dodgers announcer. Okay. If a person lives for 67 years, maybe today we look at that as, maybe, they could have lived longer, but somebody, in the case of Vin Scully, had a 67-year career. Think about that. Think about all the greats, not just on the Dodgers, but on other teams that he saw play. And so, just like what I said about Bill Russell, what a life. What a life. Vin Scully was one of the all-time greats, the greatest baseball announcer of all time. I don't think it's really a debate. And without a question, one of the greatest sports announcers of all time. Vin Scully on Tuesday passed away at the age of 94. He truly was the best, man. He was. And to think about, all those iconic calls, there's not that many announcers. Usually the great announcers usually have one great call or even a few. We think of some of the most iconic calls, the great Al Michaels. Al Michaels is my personal favorite football announcer. But his greatest call, without a question, was when the U.S. beat the Soviets I think it was the 80s in hockey. And the iconic, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes. That's kind of stuck with Al Michaels for years. Even one word catchphrases like Mike Breen, who calls the NBA Finals every year. His thing is if somebody hits a big shot, usually it's a three-pointer, he says bang. Or Marv Albert, who retired a year and a half ago, great broadcaster. If somebody hit a big shot, he'd say yes. I mean, like when you think about like just the depth of Vin Scully's calls, it was as if you were watching a movie. It was as if you were watching a movie. And so, again, to lose him, obviously, listen, he lived to be 94 years old, but it's definitely a big loss for the baseball community. But hey, these next few days, are going to be, time to celebrate his career and to celebrate, what he meant to the game of baseball, what he meant to the Dodgers organization for nearly 7 decades. He will, without a question, be missed. Vin Scully, man, what a career, what a life. So now we move on from an all-time great back to the stickiest of situations in the National Football League, of course, regarding Deshaun Watson. As I predicted, but it's not like I was actually exactly going out on a limb by saying this. Most people predicted. The NFL has appealed Deshaun Watson's 6-game suspension. Now, like I said on Monday, as I will continue to say, there is a lot of layers to this in regards to the legal legal process, in regards to Sue Robinson's decision, Judge Sue Roberts' decision to suspend him 6 games, how the NFLPA comes into play, how Commissioner Goodell comes into play. First of all, I will say this. Reportedly, according to Tom Pelissero, that the National Football League is looking to hand Deshaun Watson an indefinite suspension. They said the minimum that they want is a year. Okay. And I said in this show, if it were up to me, if I'm the commissioner of the NFL and this, sort of third party system wasn't in place, which it has been for a couple of years now, the third party in this case being Judge Sue Robinson. If I were Commissioner Goodell and I held all power, I would have suspended Deshaun Watson for a year. And I've said this numerous times because then you get to gather more evidence over the next 365 days or even the next 6 to 9 months-ish. You get this dark cloud hanging over the league off the table until 2023. And we know the court of public opinion is a real thing that the NFL very much cares about, and as any great business is going to care about. So I would have suspended him for a year, especially given the volume of the allegations. And anybody who out there has said, and I said this on Monday, but I'll say it again. Anybody who out there who said, well, Deshaun didn't play last year. Yeah, that was Deshaun's choice. He didn't want to play for the Texans last year. He wanted to be traded. That's why he didn't play last year. Okay. So like this, Deshaun's already served a year. No, he hasn't. That was his choice. Okay. That was not handed down by the commissioner or handed down by anybody else in the league office. So that's a really flawed argument. But here's where it gets interesting. So as I talked about, I detailed on Monday, and I'll sort of briefly kind of discuss this today before I go into my bigger point with this whole situation. The NFL, as I said, did not have a choice. They had to appeal the 6-game suspension, because if not, now you're looking at, again, as I said, the largest or the largest growing demographic in the NFL is women that are watching the league. 50% roughly of NFL fans are women. And so is it the greatest look to have one of the faces, because Deshaun, A, is a quarterback and B, is a very good quarterback? Is it a great look for one of the faces of your league to have the number of these allegations and get pretty much a slap on the wrist, by the way, with no fine? The NFL was going to push back against that. And we know that there's a back and forth going on between the league and the Players Association. Here's where the Players Association thing comes into play and where it gets very, very interesting. And we saw this about 5 years ago. Not as much of a high-profile case as this, but certainly significant to this. So the NFL is going to appeal the suspension. They are pushing for an indefinite suspension. Reportedly, they would be content with a year. If the Players Association decides to sue the NFL, okay, so if they don't like it, they don't like that the commissioner stepping in, if they decide to sue, then Deshaun Watson, there's a better chance than not, his suspension gets put on hold and he plays week 1. So as long as the suspension is put on hold, Deshaun can play as many games as he wants. The NFL obviously does not want that at all. And so that's sort of the dicey territory that comes into play when you're talking about the NFL suspending Deshaun, or I should say appealing the suspension. And so, and again, it does, and I mentioned this on Monday, it does hurt them in terms of leverage for the CBA coming down, years from now, between, of course, the league and the Players Association, because the Players Association will be like, hold on, we agreed to this a couple of years ago, that anytime that there is any sort of violation of the NFL's personal conduct policy, that a third party is going to come in, usually probably a retired judge, independent of the NFL. They've made their decision, and both sides are supposed to stick with it. Well, the NFL's not, because, as most people agreed, Judge Robinson's punishment, we felt like it was kind of light. It's kind of light. 6 games, Ezekiel Elliott, and he's the interesting situation, or the interesting sort of comparison I have for this that I wanted to bring up. Ezekiel Elliott in 2017, right? He was suspended 6 games for, by the way, 1 allegation of domestic violence, to which, by the way, the legal system found that the woman accusing him of this was not really that credible. Point being, Zeke had the suspension, got suspended 6 games by the NFL in August of 2017. Zeke appealed the suspension. It got put on hold for a little over half the NFL season, and it came into effect in week 10. So Zeke still served the 6-game suspension, but it didn't come until week 10. And so that's going to be the really interesting thing with this whole Deshaun Watson situation. If the NFL appeals the suspension, which of course they are, NFLPA sues them, Deshaun can play week 1. And then we'll just have to wait from there. And this is why I said this is, what sort of the dicey territory that Goodell and the NFL is entering, is we are risking possibly, losing in court. Now, do I think they will? I don't think they will, but hey, I'm not a legal expert. But I'm just saying this could get really, really ugly for the league, for the Players Association, and I'm really, really interested to see how it plays out. Got a few comments from a few different people. John Rivera says, asked for a year and settled for 10 to 12 games. Possibly, although again, like I reiterate, and this is according to Tom Pelissero, who's a very connected source. He said they are pushing for an indefinite suspension. They will be fine with a year, but they won't be fine with anything less. Now, with them and the Players Association maybe coming to a compromise, I don't know how that would work, but again, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from there. Grady Edwards is in the comments. He says, I hope Deshaun gets the book thrown at him. Totally fine if Godfather Roger comes in and just Michael Vick his behind, indefinitely. So you're saying give him the indefinite suspension like the commissioner did for Michael Vick when he got in trouble and he ended up going to prison for his crimes. Barry Grant Jr., All Even Podcast, he's in the comments. He says he deserves a year and then some, but if this doesn't work for the NFL, it's time to move on. Yes, I mean, I agree, because at that point, then if the NFL keeps fighting, then they lose all leverage. So that's the only thing. I agree with you, Barry. I would I be mad if Deshaun Watson got indefinite suspension? I can't say I'd be I wouldn't exactly be heartbroken. Okay, I'd be more okay with an indefinite suspension as opposed to 6 games, because even Judge Robinson, who handed the suspension down, the suspension we all thought was pretty light, even she said verbatim, Watson's actions were egregious. So even the person who gives the light suspension thinks it's bad. And so, that's where everybody, I think, is in pretty much is in agreement about, Deshaun more likely than not did what these women are accusing him. You can't have 30 women come in with almost identical stories and it not have some merit to it. And the fact that, the New York Times, of course, as I brought up numerous times, came out with the report saying that, Deshaun reached out to, I think it was 66 women over a 17-month span. There's something there. Okay. This isn't like some league conspiracy just to go get Deshaun Watson. And there's something else I want to bring up too about the Players Association, but I'll get to Grady's comment here. He says, yes, Bryson, but the NFL still has the ultimate say at the end and can throw out any decision of the third party. Unfortunately, players signed off on this. And here's something else too, Grady, and everybody out there that's interesting about the players. a lot of sort of the leaders of the Players Association reportedly have kind of, came to the NFL and said, time out. Owners have either committed or allegedly committed similar crimes, or at least been involved in similar disturbing behavior as Deshaun Watson. Bob Kraft, Dan Snyder. There were some allegations earlier this year about Jerry Jones, Jerry Richardson. Now, Jerry Richardson, of course, sold the Panthers, but some of these current owners, like Kamish, they're doing some shady activity too. And I think we're supposed to, we need to hold the owners to a higher standard. And so the players are kind of talking about that. Now, you ask me, I don't care who you are. You should get, a punishment that is, fits the crime, right? If you do something that is egregious and terrible, I think you should get the book thrown at you without a question. With Deshaun, with any owner, with any player that would commit a crime such as this, or allegedly commit a crime such as this. So that's something else too that the NFLPA is kind of going to use as sort of their leverage. But this is why I said this is where the whole agreements to this third party person, this third party, it being, of course, a judge, sort of came back to backfire in the NFL. So I think, I heard somebody bring this up on Twitter, and I think it's a good point that once we come to the CBA, once it expires and both sides come to the table, both sides need to agree on the third party choice. Both sides need to agree to it. So, we'll see how it plays out, but I'm very interested. I'm kind of dreading it. I'm not going to lie, just for the simple fact that, again, it is a dark cloud hanging over what I think is going to be a phenomenal NFL season. And listen, man, the Browns are responsible for giving him the highest guaranteed contract in NFL history. I mean, it was so funny. You had the Haslam family come out the other day and say, we feel such remorse and we feel so sorry for the women. It's like, yeah, BS. Come on. Okay, you gave him this massive contract. You had to know something was up. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how it plays out. My guess, but if you had to ask me what my guess is, I think the NFL, sort of alluding to what Grady said in the comments, I think the NFL wins this. I think Commissioner Goodell wins this, and Deshaun Watson gets a 1-year suspension. Does he get indefinite? I don't know if I'm confident that will happen, but I think he will get a year. That is my guess. I think he ends up getting a year. My guess before there was even any suspension handed down was 8 games, 10 games. The fact that it was 6, I think, shocked a lot of people. Some people maybe, who had a closer look at the situation, maybe they weren't surprised at all, but 6 games felt light. I feel like minimum 12 games. And see, at that point too, let's just say it was 12 games. The Browns would be sitting there saying, okay, because, by the way, Cleveland's schedule early is not difficult given their roster. Let's say they start 3-0. Or let's say they get off to a good start. They're in a brutal division with Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. Cleveland gets off to a good start. They're in the playoff picture. Jacoby Brissett's playing well. The running game is working. The defense is playing well. Are they going to all of a sudden throw Deshaun Watson into that? Given the big media cloud hanging over that. But then again, the Browns made their bed. They'll have to lay in it. And the bed that they made was the contract. It just is what it is. That's their fault, man. That's, NFL can't do anything about that. The Players Association, Judge Robinson, that's the Browns' fault for giving him that contract. It's without a question. It could go down. There's a chance it could go down as the worst contract in NFL history. It is, I think there's no question, the riskiest contract in NFL history. But we'll see how it plays out. All right. Something else too, that before I get to Aaron Rodgers, because I definitely want to discuss that. Ugh, this guy's something. I did want to touch on briefly the MLB trade deadline. Of course, the story that blew every other deal out of the water was Juan Soto to the San Diego Padres. And it was kind of funny watching it play out because of the whole Eric Hosmer situation. And he Washington was on his no trade list, but then it wasn't. And then it was kind of back and forth. And Eric Hosmer ends up with my Boston Red Sox, who, ended up being buyers at the deadline outside of Christian Vasquez. So, we'll see how my Red Sox go from there. I'm, pessimistic to say the least. But Juan Soto to the Padres, here's what it does. It makes them the third best team in the National League. To me, it's clearly the Dodgers at number one. The fact that they played as well as they did with the injuries that they had, Dodgers are the best team in the NL. I think they're the best team in baseball, personally. Mets are absolutely the second best team in the NL, given their pitching, given the incredible improvements from last year to this year offensively. And I think the Padres are third. You look at their rotation, their bullpen, which is excellent. I mean, they freaking got Josh Hader. They got Josh Hader from the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, he's had some inconsistencies, but if Josh Hader can get back to what he was a few years ago as one of the probably three best closers in baseball, that's a huge, huge get for the Padres. So you're talking about a loaded rotation and bullpen, a lineup that's already been doing damage this year. Then you add Juan Soto to that. There's a chance maybe Fernando Tatis comes back. How healthy is he? How long does it take him to get his rhythm back? Tatis or no Tatis, I think the Padres are the third best team in the National League. I think they surpassed Atlanta. They're scary. They're scary, and they will be for a while now because their best players, A, are under contract for a while, and B, are young. So, I'm sure they'll give, Juan Soto the big deal that he's been asking for. I mean, the man did turn down $440 million from the Washington Nationals. So I think it's safe to say that he will get more from the Padres. But National League playoffs is going to be very interesting. I've said numerous times of the show, in the American League, it is a two-team race. Nobody in the American League, and I repeat, nobody can beat the New York Yankees, which makes me want to throw up, or the Houston Astros, which almost makes me want to throw up. But I said for the season, Astros-Dodgers rematch of 2017, and Dodgers come out in 7 games. They come out on top. I'm going to stick with that prediction. I feel good about it. All right, moving on back to the NFL and to Mr. Rodgers, who is not exactly anything like the original Mr. Fred Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was on a podcast the other day, the Aubrey Marcus podcast, and he was talking about using psychedelic drugs. The drug of choice is called, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, ayahuasca. I think that's how you pronounce it, ayahuasca. Okay, so Aaron Rodgers took this, and hear his explanation for why it has enriched his life.
It was a very deep and meaningful couple of nights ceremony, and I came back and knew that I was never going to be the same. And like you said, it doesn't. You don't do that, and then for me, I didn't do that and think, "Oh, I'm never playing football again." No, it gave me a deep and meaningful appreciation for life. And my intention the first night going in was, I want to feel what pure love feels like. That was my intention. And I did. I really feel like that set me on my course to be able to go back in to my job and have a different perspective on things. And then to be way more free at work, as a leader, as a teammate, as a friend, as a lover. And I really feel like that experience paved the way for me to have the best season of my career.
I don't really know where to start on that. First of all, I will say this before I even get to Aaron. Ayahuasca is a drug used medicinally in South America primarily. I think it has some ties to some sort of religious belief there. I am not in any way attacking how they use it or the medicinal benefits of it. Not at all. Okay, so I want to make that clear. I'm not like anti this drug. If that's what their religious beliefs are, then that's what they are, and I've got no problem with them using this. But to Aaron, okay. This guy gets weirder every interview he does, it seems like. I mean, we thought the immunized thing was a big deal. This is, I don't even know where I'm supposed to go on this. Okay, like he sounds like, again, Aaron Rodgers would have been perfect. I mean, perfect for the 70s. I mean, even the late 60s. I mean, you think about sort of like the hippie movement and how it started and how it's continued. Aaron Rodgers would have been, I mean, just perfect. I mean, he got the long hair, he's got the kind of patchy gray beard, and he's got the big tattoo, and he's reportedly dating a woman named Blue of Earth. He's taking psychedelic drugs and said it changed his life, and it was a ceremony, and well, the other quarterbacks in the NFL are, you got your Russell Wilsons of the world and your Tom Brady's of the world, who are trying to improve their body, trying to improve their knowledge of the game, obsessively watching film, and trying to engage with their teammates as much as possible in the offseason. Certainly Russell did, because he got traded to a new team. This is why Aaron Rodgers has won Super Bowl. Not this whole weird situation, but this focus on just about everything but football. And by the way, I'm not one of those people that says like all you're supposed to talk about in the interviews is football, or all you're supposed to care about off the field is football. I'm not one of those people. But when I rarely hear you talk about football, that feels a little different to me. That feels different, because Aaron is the type of guy who, he walks into the room and is spouting off all these weird conspiracy beliefs of his. And not only does he truly believe it, we know those people in our lives, they truly believe the conspiracy that they spout out. But he really, deep down, you can hear it in the tone of his voice, you can hear it in the things he says, he really believes he's the smartest person in the room. He really does. And that can't be the heartbeat of your franchise in terms of trying to win the Super Bowl. Again, I have never, for even a half second, debated Aaron Rodgers' talent. He is arguably the greatest and most natural thrower of the football that we've ever seen. But you got to have more than that. You got to have those extra leadership and tangible skills. I know people get tired of me saying it, but this is why I'm not horribly confident in Kyler Murray winning a Super Bowl. It is not because of his talent. The kid, I mean, you just have to watch Kyler Murray for 5 plays and be like, okay, that kid looks different than everybody else. Not just because of his size, obviously, but he uses his size to his advantage, right? He's got a huge arm. He's accurate. He can run around. But his teammates probably can't stand him because, A, we know now he doesn't really watch film. And B, you talk about the body language, isolating himself from everybody else on the sidelines. And you see a lot of that with Aaron Rodgers. Rolling his eyes at teammates and very passive-aggressive answers to the media. And again, acting like he is truly the smartest person that you've ever met in your life. I think what it comes down to, and I'm not even in the slightest bit joking here, I think what it comes down to for Aaron Rodgers is he really does not know what he wants in life. And I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not going to play one here on the podcast. But it's always something, it's always a new weird with Aaron Rodgers. It's always a new weird. Whether it's, this antiviral treatment that he got for COVID that obviously was not the vaccine. When Joe Rogan, is talking about, COVID anecdotes, or antivirus pills and stuff and different treatments, and people, there was a lot of backlash for Joe Rogan. He's like, hey, don't listen to me. I'm just a podcaster. I'm not a medical expert. Well, Aaron Rodgers took him seriously. Okay, so he's trusting somebody who's not a doctor. He's dating a woman, not a shot at the woman whatsoever, but he's dating a woman named Blue of Earth. He's taken ayahuasca. He's vomiting, losing weight. It's like I can't with this guy. There's a reason that the Packers front office, that Mark Murphy, who runs the Packers, said that the Packers did not sign a 3-year, $150 million deal with Aaron Rodgers. They did not agree to those terms. Mark Murphy said, we signed 3 one-year deals. Because with this guy, you have no clue. I mean, we're saying stuff like this on podcasts about these stuff he's doing. You don't know where he is. You got no clue. So I don't really know what the reaction is supposed to be on my end from the podcast interview itself. I think I saw it was like a 2-hour, 36-minute show. I can't say I'll be spending 2 hours and 36 minutes of my time listening to that. But hey, listen, if you want to, have at it. It's your decision. But that this is the only other athlete that this would not have shocked me if this particular quote or soundbite that I played came from. Kyrie Irving is the only other guy that I've been like, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Outside of Aaron and Kyrie, I'd have been like, wow, they said that. I mean, there's weird athletes we know, but like if you'd have just showed me the quote and said it's anonymous, I'd have been like, that's probably Aaron. And if I didn't say Aaron, I'd have said Kyrie. Lord have mercy. Let's see. Grady says, people can believe what they want, and I respect their beliefs. But in my experience in talking to people who took psychedelic drugs in biblical scripture, it's a gateway to the demonic. Scary stuff. It's not something you want to play with. And again, Aaron, from what I know, doesn't subscribe to, say, the religious beliefs. I think he said himself, he's like agnostic. He doesn't subscribe to the religious beliefs that those who use this drug for medicinal purposes do. He has not made that public or clear. Maybe he does. Who knows? Maybe this is something he uses regularly. But according to Aaron, it seemed like it was something that he just used recreationally in the offseason, kind of just dabbling around with it. And he said it changed his life as a quarterback and a leader, which Aaron's never really been much of a leader. So I don't know how it really did much there as a person and as I'm going to paraphrase, boyfriend. I can't with this guy. He's, oh my goodness. Okay, let's move on from the weird. Let's move on, sticking the NFL to the Miami Dolphins, who are in some hot water right now with the NFL. No question about it. They have been disciplined by the NFL for tampering with Tom Brady and with Sean Payton on multiple occasions. So the NFL has stripped a 2023, so next year, first-round pick from Miami, as well as a 2024 third-round pick. So two relatively high picks stripped away from Miami Dolphins, and Stephen Ross has been suspended, I believe, 6 games. I think either up until week 6 or the first 6 games of the season for the Dolphins. Stephen Ross is the owner of the team. So to me, what I got a kick out of, before I even get to, like, say, the punishment, what I got a kick out of, the most embarrassing part about it is that they did a terrible job of trying to cover up the tamper, if you will, and did not land Tom Brady and did not land Sean Payton. That's the that's the thing that I kind of laugh about with the Miami Dolphins. That's what I love. And so, like, this is why there's a lot of hype around the Dolphins going into the season. I don't see it. Did they get substantially better in offense? Absolutely. Not even just for Tyreek Hill. They added Cedric Wilson. They added, I think, Teron Armstead, the tackle from the Saints, who's a really, really good player. They added 2 not elite running backs, but 2 very good running backs. The defense is still solid, even without Brian Flores being there. This defense is going to hold their own. It comes down to the quarterback. I don't trust the quarterback, and if you're asking me, do I trust him in a AFC loaded with great quarterbacks? Do I trust Tua to be one of the 7 that gets in the playoffs? I don't. Do I trust the new coach, Mike McDaniel, who has these really weird press conferences? Do I trust him to guide the Dolphins to the place where Brian Flores couldn't? I do not. I do not. So it goes back to, and like this whole tampering thing didn't shock me, kind of like the Aaron Rodgers quotes. This doesn't shock me with Miami. This doesn't shock me by Stephen Ross. Because when you look at the history of Miami in recent years and some of the shady behind-the-scenes activity with Brady, with Sean Payton, I mean, this is part of the reason why, Brian Flores has sued the Miami Dolphins. There's a reason for that. Right? Now, to be fair, to be accurate, the NFL had, according to this article, by ESPN, the NFL has found no evidence that the team intentionally lost games during the 2019 season. That is what Brian Flores, or part of his lawsuit, is alleging that the Dolphins did. That Stephen Ross basically went to him and said, hey, I want you to intentionally lose games so we can get a high draft pick. So the NFL, according to this article, has not found that. So in that situation, we'll just have to wait. The whole Brian, just like Deshaun Watson or any legal situation, you're going to have to wait and find out with Brian Flores. It's going to be a long process. But yeah, this is kind of, I kind of get a kick out of this. It's kind of laughable because this is a desperate Dolphins franchise that has not had a franchise quarterback in over 2 decades since the retirement of Dan Marino. They've tried it in other guys. Recently they tried Ryan Tannehill. That didn't really work. And then they've tried now with Tua through 2 years. I'm not sold, especially when you compare him to Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. He's not even close to their level. And so this is it's funny. Like when desperate franchises with bad front offices, which Miami, I believe, has, there's a reason they've had minimal playoff success in the last couple of decades. That I kind of get a kick out of this tire fire. I really do. Maybe it's mean on my part. But just kind of watching Miami sort of go up in smoke, like really kind of gives me not joy, but I kind of like watching it. Especially for a franchise that fired Brian Flores, who I lauded multiple times in the show. I never said I think he would be like a Super Bowl winning head coach, but I was like, this guy is, and Miami gets better every single year under him, and yet you give him the boot. That's why I think there is at least a little bit of merit to what Brian Flores is alleging about the Dolphins, that race possibly came into play, with his firing. Given how this franchise is, would not shock me at all. So now also, again, in addition to the first round pick, the Dolphins will forfeit their 2024 selection, third round selection. Stephen Ross was fined $1.5 million, which Stephen Ross is worth billions of dollars. This isn't going to hurt his pocket too much, and he's suspended until October 17th. During which time he is not permitted to be at the Dolphins facility or represent the team in any team event. He also cannot attend any league meeting before the annual league meeting in 2023. So Ross gets punishment, and the Dolphins get punishment with losing some draft picks. And they already lost draft picks because they traded, was it 4 of them for Tyreek Hill? Like, this is why I said, like, getting Tyreek Hill helps. I don't think he's going to be even close to as effective with Tua as he was with Mahomes. But the fact they gave up 4 first-round picks and receivers, are more important than they've ever been in this current NFL. But 4 first-round picks important? That's something that desperate franchises do. Cleveland Browns were a desperate franchise. I know, because they gave a guy with 30 allegations of sexual assault a $246 million deal, fully guaranteed. That's how I know the Browns are desperate, okay? This is how I know the Dolphins are desperate. And so, like, if you're going to tamper, if you're going to break the rules, at least do a good job of it. It's kind of like when my Tennessee Vols, and the situation still isn't over, I don't think, with the former coach, Jeremy Pruitt, and the Vols athletic program got in trouble because they, of certain, recruiting violations. And it turns out like the money that they paid wasn't even that much. It's like, if you're going to get in trouble, okay, at least be like the Houston Astros. If you're going to cheat, at least win. Okay, at least the cheating pays off in some way. But if you're going to cheat, and I'm not advocating cheating, obviously, but if you're going to break the rules, at least do a decent job at it, because if you don't, people are just going to laugh at you. Okay? Like, the Astros, at least they came away with the 2017 World Series title. Is it illegitimate? Yeah, kind of. But hey, they got it. If you're the Tennessee Vols football program, getting in trouble for, what they, should have gotten in trouble for, and how much money they were offering, it was hilarious. And the same thing with Miami. It really is. The fact that Tom Brady wanted to go there, now as a player, as an owner, sure, I get that. But even as a player owner, I don't get that one, even with Sean Payton, because he still got chaos in the front office. And if you got chaos in the front office, it is hard to succeed on the field. There's very few teams that you can point to where the front office was a dumpster fire. Even if the coach is good, even if the roster is talented, it's still hard to win because you have the distraction at the top. Like that's part of what made the Cleveland Cavaliers winning the NBA championship so shocking in 2016. Don't remind me as a Warriors fan, was the fact that Dan Gilbert is not a very good owner. And I'm forgetting the name of their GM now. He's with the Pelicans. His name just was in my head. I don't know. I forgot his name, but he's up and down. He has his moments and he has his not so good ones. But yeah, Cleveland is a desperate franchise. The Cavaliers, the Browns, and the Miami Dolphins clearly are a desperate franchise. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But it looks like the punishment's been handed down from the NFL to Miami. And like I said, the bad franchises who have clueless front offices, I feel bad for the fans, of course, because the fans have, they have no say in these decisions. I feel bad for the fans. But as far as like the front offices, I get a kick out of it. All right, moving on. Last segment of the day, sticking in the NFL. We have football tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Hall of Fame game. But we have football tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Jacksonville Jaguars, Las Vegas Raiders. If you are somebody, if you are a diehard NFL fan, if you are somebody who bets games, as I always say, during the NFL season.
Who's a betting man?
If I were a betting man, if you are a betting man or woman, and you like betting preseason games, the line is Vegas minus 2.5. That went from 2 to 2.5. So if you're somebody who bets on preseason games, knock yourself out. I cannot imagine betting on a preseason game because it means nothing, and the coaches and the players, not the players, but to a certain degree, people are going to treat it as if it means nothing, and so it doesn't count in your record. If you want to bet on the Hall of Fame game, hey, to each their own. To each their own. But Jaguars Raiders tonight from Canton, Ohio. Of course, the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies will be this weekend, I believe, on Saturday. And so, it's gonna be fun, seeing the new guys go in the Hall of Fame, get their gold jackets. And so I'm not really going to talk about this game much because it doesn't mean anything. But in terms of the directions that the two franchises are going in, let me start with Jacksonville. I believe they absolutely, without a question, got better in the offseason. Number one, because they fired Urban Meyer. Okay, that's addition by subtraction. But not only did you fire Urban Meyer, which they did toward the end of last season, but they brought in Doug Peterson. Now, Doug Peterson is somebody who's had his moments and then has had some not so good ones. But if nothing else, in a quarterback's league, and it certainly was by this point in time, in a quarterback's league, he won a Super Bowl against the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, against the defensive mastermind who is Bill Belichick. He did that with Nick Foles. Now, granted, that was a very talented Philadelphia Eagles roster. But as we know, talent alone does not win you a championship. It just does, especially in football. Football, more than any other sport, coaching is crucial. And Doug Peterson, through some gutsy play calls, through his system that's very similar to that of Andy Reid, in part because he is an Andy Reid disciple, and because Nick Foles is comfortable in that situation because he was in Kansas City briefly, they were able to make it work, and they were able to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. So I think bringing Doug Peterson in to help develop Trevor Lawrence, who we saw in college, okay, we've seen the talent this kid has. To me, his ceiling is a better version of Justin Herbert. And we've seen what Herbie's done thus far through the first two seasons. He's been remarkable. He's broken so many quarterbacks' records, yards, touchdowns. Herbert's been awesome. I think I think that Trevor Lawrence can be better. I think he's got a better arm than Herbert. I think he moves around just as well, if not better than Herbert. Footwork is excellent. He's deadly accurate. The problem was last season, the offensive line was atrocious. He had virtually no true number one or even number two wide receiver. The running game was non-existent. The defense was terrible, and the coaching was about as bad as it could possibly be at this level. And so there's no choice but to improve if you're Jacksonville this year. You get Travis Etienne back healthy, Trevor Lawrence's former college teammate at Clemson. He gets an opportunity to play this season after coming off of a knee injury last year. You have the additions made to the receiving unit, adding Christian Kirk. You have the improvements defensively. Now, again, I thought their number one draft pick was questionable, but we'll see how he pans out. And you have Doug Peterson. Do I think the Jaguars are a playoff team? I don't. Not in this AFC that we look at right now. In the NFC, I'd probably still say no, but I give them a puncher's chance. But they're in the AFC, which is nothing but young superstar quarterbacks galore. Trevor Lawrence has not reached that level yet. Do I think he could take the next step this year? No question. There's a reason that people said after the 2019 season that Trevor Lawrence was the best quarterback coming out of 2021. People said that 2 years out. There's a reason for this. There's a reason that people said if he had come out or been eligible to come out in 2019, he would have been the first overall pick over Kyler Murray. That's how talented this kid is. Put the right support around him, he can be as great as you believe that he can be. So for Jacksonville, as of now, I think they're trending the right direction. Now, they are in sort of a similar situation as the Miami Dolphins are, although I think they have a much better quarterback than Miami has. But the front office is chaotic, to say the very least. Shad Khan is not a good owner. We've seen his history. There's a reason the Jaguars they had that one magical run. They almost played Philadelphia in the Super Bowl in 2017, but they ran into this this guy named Tom Brady, and that was that for Jacksonville. Outside of that, they have had virtually no playoff success since Tom Coughlin was the head coach in the early 2000s. So it's been a minute. Can the duo of Doug Peterson and of Trevor Lawrence, can that get them back into title contention? Maybe. I'm not willing to go there yet. They did just only win 3 games last year, so they've still got a ways to go. But I've said, if there is Vegas loves doing this, where who's the team that you trust the most to double their wins? Mine is Jacksonville. Okay. Tennessee got worse in the offseason. Okay. Now Indianapolis, I really like Indianapolis this year. I fall for the Indianapolis thing every year. Maybe I'm just a sucker, but hey, I'm gonna be a sucker again in 2022. And Houston's a mess. I like Davis Mills. That's about all I like. Okay, I'm not sure Lovie Smith's gonna do a whole lot there. The defense is awful. So they could possibly pick up a win, maybe even 2 over Houston. But for Jacksonville, it's a matter of can they double their wins? I think they will. I think they can win 6 games this year. I mean, they are playing a 4th place schedule after all. So that helps too. Upgrade at coach, upgrade at skill position players. You get a running back, really talented running back coming off of injury, and it's year 2 for Trevor Lawrence. And we know year 2 for the best quarterbacks in today's game, the majority of them really kind of popped in year 2. And so I think Trevor Lawrence, as much as he possibly can, playing in Jacksonville, can do that. As for the Las Vegas Raiders, they are certainly in a better situation in terms of the roster and in terms of the overall outlook on the 2022 season than the Jaguars are. Of course, they made the playoffs last year despite chaos. And did I forget to mention chaos regarding John Gruden, regarding Henry Ruggs, regarding Damon Arnett, regarding Josh Jacobs at the end of the season? It was always something with the Vegas Raiders. But Derek Carr, who is, I don't care what anybody says, a top 10 quarterback, he led them through it. He got them to the postseason, and they came closer than probably any other team up until the Super Bowl to beating the Cincinnati Bengals. Remember, there's about 20 seconds left. Raiders were down 7 at Cincinnati, and they had a 4th and goal inside the 10. They had one shot to possibly tie the game, and who knows what would have happened. Like, that's what Derek Carr has done. And the Raiders got better. They added Devontae Adams, arguably the best receiver in football. They added Chandler Jones, still, I believe, one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. They still have Max Crosby, who they signed to an extension. Great pass rusher. Okay, the offensive line is still good. And by the way, skill position players for the Raiders. You still got Darren Waller. You still got Hunter Renfrow, who had over 1,000 yards last year. Offensively, the Raiders are set. It's the defense that I have concerns about, not the pass rush. I just mentioned Max Crosby, Chandler Jones. The secondary really, really, really scares me. I don't know if those, especially in that division, against those quarterbacks, I don't know how long the secondary can hold up. If they can be average this year, the Raiders are a lock to make the playoffs. Of course, as long as they stay healthy. There's the health thing that comes into play. But I think the question is, who do you trust over the next, let's just say 2-3 years? Because 5 years, that's a long way out. But next 2 to 3 years, who do I trust the most? I trust the Raiders because I know they have a sure thing at franchise quarterback. They have, again, incredible skill position players. Can they improve the defense? Now, do I think they are going to win the division? I don't. I cannot see them beating out the Chargers, Broncos, and Chiefs for the division. Am I ruling it out? No, but I would be pretty surprised if they made it happen. Although this is Derek Carr we're talking about, so maybe he does make it happen. Maybe he does lead the Raiders to the division crown. But I wasn't a fan of the Josh McDaniels hiring at head coach, given how his first stint as a head coach ended up in Denver. I always felt like the McDaniels-Brady pairing in New England was a whole lot more about Brady than the other way around. And so, look, we'll see how, Josh McDaniels, I believe in second chances. Let's see how it plays out in Vegas. The front office in Vegas they got better somewhat. But, Mark Davis, who's, not exactly known as one of the greatest owners in the world, not just because he has a horrible barber, but, some of the decisions he's made in regards to personnel, in regards to coach hirings have been questionable at best. So can this Raiders roster make the playoffs? Yes. Are they a championship contender? I have a hard time seeing that. But that's my outlook for both franchises. And I could be glass half full. I think it's glass half full for both teams. Jaguars fans, you have a reasonable, you have a decent reason to be somewhat optimistic. Playoff team, a hard time believing that. But double their wins to 6? Sure. I think they can absolutely do that. Matter of fact, I think they are going to do that. And then as for the Raiders, I think they are certainly got a shot to get in the playoffs. I don't know if I'm predicting them there, but we'll see what happens. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to check out Carving It Up Live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Also, be sure to check out the Carving It Up podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. Have a great evening, everybody. Stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.